This is Sarah Milligan with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. I am at the Chilocco Indian School for their annual reunion. It's May 27th, 2016. I'm talking with Bunnie McCosar. McCosar. That was my first inclination. I second guessed myself. And we're going to be talking today about briefly about his time at Chilocco, but more primarily about his military time. And I want to reference here too that we talked a couple seconds ago about the fact that you were interviewed a chunk of time ago.
I forgot what the name of the program was. It's a national thing though.
Yeah.
Veterans Historical.
So
History, something like that.
But you did the interview. Did you say it was 20 or 30 years ago you were interviewed?
Yeah.
So I just wanted that as a flag. So if somebody wants to go chase that down and look at the two different, they know. But you think it's probably in the National Archives as a part of one of their projects?
Well, it's on Facebook with my name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, under my name.
I'll look at that to flag it.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay.
Somebody put it on there.
Somebody did it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll look that up. That means it's online and I can find it.
All right.
Okay, so just to get started, I wanted to ask some really general questions. Just tell me a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? A little bit about who your family is and all that good stuff.
Okay, I was born in Claremore, Oklahoma, but my family lived in Holdenville, Oklahoma. That's where I was raised up. Before I started going to school, went to a lot of small schools around Holdenville before I had developing a large family there, in my family there, so we were forced to go to government boarding schools. I was sent to Jones Academy with my brother and some cousins, and I stayed there quite a while from about mid-1940s until 1951, and after that I was sent to Chilocco here, 1952 through 1956. Graduated here. I knew I wanted to be in the military, so always reading up about the military and what branch of service I might want to go into. I took mechanics here at Chilocco, so I wanted to be an aircraft mechanic. And entered the service and go to the highest rank I could there as a mechanic. We didn't receive too much encouragement to go to college during my time here.
After Chilocco?
Yeah, after Chilocco.
Can I follow up on something you said just a second ago really quickly?
Yeah.
You said that you were forced to go to Jones Indian School. Does that mean that you didn't want to go to a boarding school?
Not really, because we didn't. When you're poor, you don't really realize you're poor. It's just natural life there. So, way back in early 1940s, there were a lot of poor Indians around the country there, and they really couldn't afford families, no jobs, anything like that. So we had to split us up. Maybe keep the younger kids at home, and 4 of us in the family went to boarding school. 2 girls went to Eufaula, and 2 of us went to Jones Academy.
Okay. And then when you moved on from Jones to Chilocco, how did you feel about that?
It's a different world because Jones Academy was all males. And when I got to Chilocco here, there's females here. But that's about the only period in my life that females were in my life. Just here at school, 22 years in the Marine Corps, no females. But this was part of a later story there when I got retired and come back to Oklahoma in 2014, late 2014. I became a member of a church. Only one deacon. He trained me to be a deacon, and it's all women. I'm the only deacon there. Only male there.
That is quite a shift, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm going to have to learn how to deal with women. Marine Corps language techniques. They say I talk too loud or too harsh.
Well, at least they're willing to communicate with you.
Yeah, yeah. Most of them have college education. I have college degree also, so I don't let them get by with anything.
I'm sure the same goes. I'm sure the same goes for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that helps me understand a little bit. When you came to Chilocco in 1952, you said that you were interested in the military. Were you interested in the military when you first came into Chilocco, or is that something you really sort of developed while you were here?
I started thinking about it because the Korean War was still going on there, and I thought I might have to go, so I was going to prepare myself for that and learn to be a mechanic. I was auto mechanics here, but I wanted to go to aircraft mechanics.
So how did that fit with the fact that Chilocco had a National Guard unit here on campus?
Well, it didn't really faze me that much because I was small, underweight, and most of the men I knew back then, they were larger, taller. So I really didn't get interested in it. I tried sports, but I was still too small. I think I tried out one time and ran up against my big, tall relative on the other side, and I could try to knock him down, but all I could do was wrap myself around his legs. He couldn't go nowhere, and he said, "That's real good."
That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Korea War was going on. It sounds like you sort of saw that something was inevitable with you in military. So how did the time that you had in Chilocco, you were working on, your practical training was for mechanics. What about just being here in general? So you'd moved from Jones Academy where there was all boys, and you moved here to where it was co-ed. Was that the only real shift that you had from coming from there to here?
That's about it. It was kind of hard to deal with females, I guess. I'd be a bashful type. I wasn't a person of a lot of words, very few words. I got fussed at a lot in my younger days. Somebody talked to me and I'd say something to me. My only answer was, "Huh." And my mother would make a comment about that, say, "That's all he knows how to say, huh."
Well, that would make it hard.
Yeah. I had a few special words I'd use, and the Jones Academy superintendent got after me for saying "sorta." Why don't you say "somewhat"?
Did you switch to somewhat?
I switched to "somewhat." Somewhat I did.
Somewhat. Well, I've heard other people talk about whenever they come to Chilocco that it was fairly regimented, it seems like. That you had a schedule, you had to be a certain place at a certain time, and you had room inspections and things like that. Was that a shift from you at Jones Academy,
No.
assuming?
We're the same way down there, same techniques, but I didn't see it as being regimented. It's just a normal thing of life, what you're supposed to do to get things done at a certain time, on time.
Got it. So you liked that schedule,
Yeah.
it sounds
Yeah.
like. So when you, then it seems like when you left Chilocco in 1956, tell me what your next steps were.
Well, I saw a job down in Ponca City. Auto mechanics took me down there and applied for a job. And after I graduated, I waited 2 weeks to get an answer back after graduation there. It never came, so I joined the military service. About 2 weeks after I left, here comes saying I had a job in Ponca City, but it's too late then.
So within 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
So would you have rather had the job as a mechanic, you think, than what you ended up doing?
Not really. I want to go to airplane mechanics.
So it was probably
Yeah.
the choice.
Yeah.
So tell me about how you joined the military then.
Well, basically, I went down to enlist in the service. I had chickened out and decided I better go to Air Force and be an airplane mechanic. But it was a rainy day and no recruiters there except the Marine Corps. So he said, "Come here, boy, I'm going to give you a test." He gave me a test and I passed it. And he said, would you like to join the Marine Corps? I said, that's only one here, I guess I'll go. He tried to get me to go for 4 years, but I wanted 3 years because I didn't know what they offered, but I should have took the 4-year course and went he could guarantee me aviation if I had took a 4-year course.
Oh, I see.
But for 3 years, I had to join the infantry. Then, when I was in the infantry at Camp Pendleton, California, humping those 90-pound packs, heavy radios, we got a helicopter ride from off a high mountain there, and I said, this is the way to go. So I decided to re-enlist and go to the aviation, get some aviation mechanic training.
Oh, so you joined as infantry and then you re-enlisted?
Right.
At what point did you re-enlist then?
After my first 3 years were up.
Okay, so you did finish those first 3 and before you tried to switch.
You re-enlist for whatever you want to go to. Same place or a different place or a different job.
Right. So tell me a little bit about when you went to basic training in California, it sounds like. Is that right?
Everybody thought it was hard. I didn't think it was as hard. I was growing up being away from my family and not under strict guidance, I guess, learning everything on my own. I guess it's the way it was ordained for me to go because I had to learn to take care of myself and do things by myself and depend on very few people to get me along. I never did get in trouble when I was young.
Oh, really?
My parents taught me and gave me good training lessons. They were church-going persons. So I didn't have no difficulties with anything about doing what I was supposed to do and learning how to do things. Again, just learning on my own. I could go out in the woods and roam around the woods all day and come out to the place I wanted to. I could travel the woods and take care of myself, see what foods are out there and birds and animals are out there.
Yeah. So after you finished your time at Camp Pendleton, what happened? What did you do? What was your process?
After Camp Pendleton, we had to go. That was advanced infantry training there. Then we went assigned to a military unit we're going to serve with for the remainder of my enlistment. So I was sent to the 5th Marine, a well-known Marine Corps regiment. They fought in World War II in France, Germany. They're a special breed of fighting men, the tough ones. All them grunts, they're the best breed of grunts that are around to us. We take care of them, they take care of us. Yeah.
So what did you think when you first basically got assigned to them?
Well, I knew that going was going to be tough because we had to do a lot of marching and running and training all the time. They sent us a lot of different places to desert training or to cold weather training to keep us in shape there and get prepared for what's coming up. We always expecting a war every 20 years.
Oh, that leads me to, I know this is on your other paperwork and I'll get it more specifically, but when did you, it sounds like you enlisted in 56 or 57?
56.
Okay. So it sounds like you spent a good chunk of the first 3 years training.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always training. Every year is training. You train and do something better and different, learn new techniques.
Yeah. But I also think it's interesting that you sort of started paying attention to the military when the Korean War was going on.
Yeah.
When you enlisted, did you have thoughts that was sort of part of what you would have to?
Right.
Yeah.
Because young fellows are going in, we're buying those magazines that showed Korean War or World War II battles against the Japanese there, and it's showing a lot of KIAs.
Yeah.
So it kind of affects you, but a lot of us it didn't scare. We expected that as being part of the job.
Okay. So at the end of your 3 years, and your initial 3 years, you re-enlisted. Maybe tell me a little bit about that. You told me why.
Yeah. Well, I got tired of humping. They call it carrying a big pack on your back, humping up and down hills and over deserts. I decided to go to aviation, and they sent me to school at Memphis, Tennessee to learn how to be an aviation mechanic. So I spent 6 months there training how to be aviation mechanics. After that, after you completed school, then they sent you to operating squadrons wherever we needed them. And they sent me to California. The place is going. It used to be called LTA, which stands for lighter than air. It used to be those old dirigibles housed there, big hangars housed us there. And we had a big helicopter base there. That's close to Santa Ana, south side of Santa Ana, California. So we trained there until they were expecting something to happen in Vietnam, so we were starting to prepare for that. All of our training was geared towards that there. And we'd go aboard, fly aboard little small aircraft carriers, so learn to land and operate off of those. We just learn how to land day and learn how to land at night, learn how to lift heavy loads off the aircraft carriers. And we practiced for a space program. They had a big space module dummy that we would have to go out and lift up. They were heavy things, like when they landed in the ocean, we'd have to go out, and if we were nearby, we'd have to go out and do the job of picking them out of the water. So it kept busy. A lot of things. We just didn't sit around doing nothing. Always training, always training.
Yeah. Well, so did you find that whenever you actually got to aviation mechanics that it was something you enjoyed?
Yeah. Mechanics, but at that time, I think at that young age, all the young men looking towards the killing side. And if they wanted to be aircraft gunners or aircraft maintenance men, because they would be assigned to be machine gunners aboard aircraft. So that's kind of expected. They train us in how to do that under flying conditions there. So a lot of them wanted to do that, where they'd be shooting a lot of ammo. It's a fantastic saying. Say, give a young man all the ammunition he can shoot, and you got your trained man there. I hate to say it's a trained killer. Yeah, but all ammo and ammo he could shoot up.
Did you have that sense whenever you were in the middle of it that was sort of what the perception was, or?
Well, when you get in the middle of it, your thoughts are more, I hope I spot the fella that's shooting at me first before he shoots me. It's kind of like surviving then. Because when they're shooting at you, you can hear them popping through the aircraft there, and hoping it don't hit the wrong thing or person or some part on the aircraft.
Well, let's back up a little bit and talk. In order for me to understand a little bit better, what your progression in this was. You were in California again, and doing more training, and you had gone through aviation mechanic school, and you said that you felt there was a feeling that military intervention in Vietnam was imminent. So how did that progress from your standpoint, from being imminent to?
Main thing was going aboard ships, small helicopter carriers, we call them LPHs, and training how to operate off of there, carrying men, equipment. Our recon teams that go out and do the heavy investigating to see what's happening out there. We learn how to do medevacs, search and rescues, how to haul them in, how to haul out the bodies, where to take them to hospitals, or where field hospitals might be located. They taught us first aid, trying to keep them under control long enough to get to an aid station. And we got it down to within an hour because anything over that, 2 hour time limit or something, they're dead. So but helicopters were great help then. There were a lot of survivors.
Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that this was the first real time in the military history that helicopters were really being used.
It was beginning to advance because they had used helicopters in the Korean War. Mm-hmm. Marine Corps had them in the Korean War there. They were just beginning to learn then how to operate. Mm-hmm. When we went in, I was the first Marine Corps squadron that went in as a complete unit into Vietnam. Kind of historical thing because we were the first ones there. And we was the one that developed a lot of things that later squadrons that coming into Vietnam would use. The techniques what they needed to do to fight the enemy.
Oh gosh, so you all were the first ones in. You didn't have anyone that had gone and come back to tell you what to expect.
We were the ones developing it.
Did you know that when you kind of got the orders to go out? Did you know that you all were going to lead the way?
Yeah, we kind of expected because that's the way the Marine Corps operates. Send somebody in, they learn, and they pass that information back to those that coming in behind them. Mm-hmm. But we developed the techniques how to fight them, but you have to have, we're trying to help people that really didn't want to fight. We had difficulties with them.
Within your unit or once you got over there?
No, with the Vietnamese.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Marine Corps Aviation, they're not a bunch of dummies. They're a higher GCT, or that, like an IQ test, they're above 110. Mm-hmm. At least 96 or higher to get into aviation. So they were pretty well good at it, known. We'd have testing programs to see if they could handle themselves in a combat situation. We trained them.
Right.
If they couldn't, we would have to weed them out, give them a different job.
Yeah. So when you got the orders that your squad was gonna be sent to Vietnam, do you remember what you felt or thought about that?
No, I wasn't really apprehensive. We were looking forward to it because get away from that old normal training, fly, and train. We was in a big operation that was preparing us to Operation Tulungan in the Philippine island. Mm-hmm. And during the middle of the operation, then we got the word that we were going into Vietnam. So we started gearing up for preparing ourselves for that. And all the big wigs and speeches were going on to get us hyped up, I guess. Mm-hmm. We were the first ones going to be going in as a complete unit.
Yeah.
The Army was there. We went in to help them because they had them old flying bananas, you would call them, and they couldn't lift very much. We could do just a little bit better, but larger helicopters would be coming later there. We helped them. We'd go on assaults with them, learn from each other, learn new techniques about how to fight the enemy.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember whenever you first got to Vietnam then? Like you went from the Philippines to Vietnam, yeah. Right? Just directly. Right. And since you all were the first, I'm curious what your impressions were.
We kind of enjoyed it there because we're doing something different there. Yeah. We hate to be doing what everybody else is doing, so we're glad to be being the first. Everybody was, I didn't ever hear no regrets about going there.
No.
We were prepared for it.
Do you remember what the, where did you first fly into? Like, where were you stationed when you first got to Vietnam?
We was aboard helicopter carriers, and they went to the old Japanese airfield way down south Vietnam there, Soc Train. It's old Japanese airfield, and that's where they put us. There's a small airfield there, large enough for helicopters, and we operated out of there, trying to train the Vietnamese how to do assaults out of helicopters, how to assault into the enemy by way of helicopters, how to be fed and extracted and moved around. We would drop them one place and come back about an hour later, pick them up and move them some other place there. So it's a learning process for them also.
Got it. So your initial was, well, you said this, but that reiterates, your initial was more training focused than it was combat focused at that time. Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think that the Vietnamese people that you were training, you said that they weren't ready to fight. I understand that, but other than that sort of reluctance, do you remember having impressions of them or working?
We didn't see them that much. Only we passed on the airfield, but there was a road passing by, and that's about the only contact we had with them. Mm-hmm. We weren't allowed to go out into town that much because of relationships. I guess there, we dressed funny and acted different than they did. We could wonder about them because we could see two men walking down the street holding hands. That's their custom, but not an American custom there. Mm-hmm. The way they things. We had orange flight suits, but they told us to get rid of them because the monks in that area wore orange. So they're changing our ways. Mm-hmm. Plus, we used to have to practice survival also. If we got shot down, we would have to survive out in the jungles for a little while. The orange is helpful there, but it also helps the enemy find you. You know, we'd receive jungle training, which the sea training, survival in that sea.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like you had been doing training in that similar environment before that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long were you in Vietnam that first time then?
About 6 months, from April to August. April, May, June, July, August. About 5 months, I guess, there. Mm-hmm. Then we go for a 13-month tour overseas. So this was the end of our first 13 months. So after that, we got orders to return to the States and teach other people what we had learned. So we'd go back and they spread us out to different squadrons, and we would help them understand how we had been fighting a battle over in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So all the pilots and crew chiefs were there training a lot of different people to go do the job we were doing.
Yeah.
And they would develop new techniques also, but not much different than what we had established.
So what do you think was a little different that you all had to develop from what was already there?
It's our main purpose was to get troops in fast, and we would get out fast. The next thing was learning how to get the survivors going, because trying that 2-hour limit for wounded men. We had to learn how to do that. Mm-hmm. We learned techniques of how not to fly in the same path because they were getting smart. Started getting smart, and if aircraft came in the same path, they would know where to set up and shoot them down, which they did later on. A lot of people didn't remember that because they were getting shot down later on because they followed the same path. We made assaults there, not real heavy in 62. But the funny thing is, we'd make our assaults and a couple of aircraft come back with arrows in the rear end of the aircraft.
With arrows?
Yeah. They had mountain people down in that part of the area there. No weapons. They had a homemade weapons, something they make at home, not regular rifles like they had later on. Mm-hmm. But they shoot arrows at us too.
Let you know they saw you?
Yeah. But there's army people there also training us in their techniques and how to drop grenades on them, like a small bomb, I guess you would say. They put it in a glass pint jar and drop it out the window there, and when it cracked open on the ground, it would explode. So that's teaching us how to do things also. I see a lot of news reporters were, not a lot of them, a few. The courageous ones would appear there. I don't know if you know Vicky Chappelle. She was there as well, combat photographer. She lived with us for about 2 weeks. And they would pass through there and we'd help them go out on operations with us and take pictures for us. Good public relations for the Marine Corps, I guess, there.
Well, and since this was the early years of the Vietnam conflict,
yeah.
what year were you, or I guess maybe what date around this time that you were actually sent to Vietnam?
April, I think they said around Easter Sunday in April 1962.
Okay.
And we stayed until about mid-August then.
Of 62?
Yeah.
Okay.
But after we left, because our Army helicopters couldn't operate in high mountains very good, they sent the Marine units up north where there were high mountains. And they started operating there. But after we left, people that replaced us, they started getting, they had aircraft accidents in the mountains, trying to land in the mountains or land in high jungles.
Why do you think that started happening after you left? Was there?
I think they were going a little bit better trained enemy areas. Down further south, we was in a kind of civilian modernized area where they weren't very present. They were present further out away from the big cities. Or they were starting to build up in the high mountains.
Yeah. Did you have a sense of what the conflict was while you were there?
Yes, I did. No. We was trying to help them seek their own democratic policies and government. And it would be hard to do that because their politicians were not politicians, they were seeking their own benefit. They forgot about the people. Take everything away from the people. Take away their land. And you work for the state or the greedy government official. Anything the Americans would hand out for the people, I think the politicians got the top half and would sell it back to the Americans. The Americans would rebuy it again, go through that same process again.
Is that something you witnessed?
Yeah. Because we'd go out, fly over, and we could see a stockpile of American equipment down there being sold.
Huh. Well, so you've described the goal of what you were doing during that. What was it? About 6 months, 5 months that you were there the first time. 5 months. Right. And so I'm wondering, what was your next step when you came back?
The next step was going back and training other people to do the same job. But new helicopters were being developed there, and so I got in on the ground program of that because I was still a single man, and at the squadron I was in, all the volunteers were given to single men, I guess, or they wouldn't let married men do a lot of that stuff or take them away from their families. So I got sent up to Patuxent River, Maryland, to start working on a new type of helicopter, larger helicopter, more powerful helicopter coming in. Train on that so I'd be able to go back and train the squadron people. The only thing exciting about that was I performed or helped perform the first search and rescue of a Navy pilot that went down out there in a bay. So we had to go out there and pick him out of the water, but the thing was the new helicopter could float on water. I think they forgot about it later on after they went to war with it, but we were sitting in the middle of the river there and testing us for leaks or anything like that, and they got a mayday call and we had to lift up out of the water and go pick him up. But it might have surprised the pilot because we sat down in the water and waved him to jump back in the water and come to us.
So that was the first time that was used for a search and rescue?
Yeah.
You all just popped in the middle of the water?
Yeah.
Do you remember his reaction?
He gave a surprised look on his face, I guess, but he jumped back in the water and come swimming up, and we pulled him in. He wasn't injured or anything, but he's in good condition. But we had to take him out and fly him to the nearest hospital for examination.
But it was okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a new technique, new helicopter coming along, but they hadn't really developed them that well because later on, the pilots really didn't understand how to land those things. They'd make hard landings, and the heavy aft pylon way in the back of the aircraft the structure was not strong enough. After so many landings, those things start falling off, and sometimes they would fall off in the middle of the air. A lot of people died because those aircraft fall apart. They would disintegrate in the air.
Now, which aircraft was this?
H-46. CH-46As. And they just have a lot of problems there. A whole bunch of them eventually fell out of the air before they finally found out what it was.
What was it?
The structure wasn't good enough. They'd making too many hard landings. They had a door at the rear end they call a ramp. Most people would fly with it down, but that takes away structural rigidity. So they're supposed to fly with the ramp up, so everything would be more firm and secure, but they weren't doing that. Eventually all that bouncing up would make that structure weak there and it'd fall off. And about the middle of the Vietnam War, they finally realized what was going on there, and we call it down in all the aircraft, all the units. They couldn't use them aircraft until they got fixed.
Was the repair easy to make?
Not really there. Well, they might have, because they probably had to hire a lot of Japanese. We had to send our aircraft up to Japan to get them working on it, so they must probably had a big factory up there to repair them things and get them back in action there.
Yeah.
Probably cost a lot of money to get them repaired and back to Vietnam.
This actually leads me to a question about your role. So you were an aviation mechanic, and I'm assuming that you had experience with all the helicopters up to this point. But when they started to make that shift, how did you transition your role as a mechanic into that?
It's about the same thing. If you're a mechanic, you flew an aircraft you worked on. There's a mandatory requirement. You had to fly with your own work. Then as a mechanic, you're the crew chief. You were also the gunner. You were also the loader. You were also the duty doctor. There's no one aboard the aircraft to help the injured, the wounded. So you're doing a lot of jobs there, and we learned how to do a lot of that. But we did it all. We had to learn and train how to do it there. So we had to weed out process for those men that couldn't handle that, couldn't fly aboard helicopters.
Yeah.
There's the survival of the whole crew working together there, helping each other.
Yeah. Well, so you were back in the States, it sounds like, or at least you left Vietnam in 1962, and it sounds like you came back to the U.S. And sort of helped with that transition and did training with that transition. So how long were you in the U.S., or were you redeployed at some point?
I went to Jacksonville, North Carolina from 1962 to 1965, or 1966. During that time, we were still training aboard helicopter carriers, going to Caribbean islands on board ships for 6 months at a time, or going to the Mediterranean 6 months at a time. Learn how to operate off of helicopters, plus work with foreign countries. We train with foreign troops. Let them know how we do things. Train them.
So it sounds like a good chunk of your effort was spent on training other, not only training your own within yourselves, but helping with training for other
Nationalities, countries,
yeah, military.
We had a lot of air pilots that would come and train in our helicopters and go back and train their own people also.
What do you think the well, let me go somewhere else than where I was going to go. Was that pretty standard operating procedure, or was that something specific to the unit you were assigned to do all that training?
It's generalized for the whole Marine Corps squadron. Every squadron had to learn it.
Well, but was everybody else doing training with all these other countries?
Right.
Yeah.
Anytime they got assigned to helicopter operations aboard ships, they would be doing that. They would come sometimes to land squadrons there, but training was about the same thing. I returned to Vietnam again in 1966. We were supposed to be in the first CH-46 squadron there, but another squadron we had trained, they were out in California and closer, so they were sent first ahead of us. We were the second CH-46 squadron into Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it made a big difference there because we could haul more troops faster. But then at that period, they were still falling out of there, taking a lot of people with them. We could carry 15 to 17 American men, maybe 25 Vietnamese. They're small. But we're still losing a lot of men from aircraft falling apart. And there's improving them, making better rotor blades and better engines, lift more, fly faster.
So from your perspective as a mechanic, how did you deal with that? Because the machinery's falling apart, and it's obviously, no?
It didn't affect me that much. It comes with the job. So to say, it comes with the territory.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
It seems like, though, if your job was to make sure that the machinery was in tip-top condition or working, and the machinery itself was faulty, it seems like it would be frustrating as the mechanic. No?
Not really.
Nope.
About all I can say is come with the territory.
It's still the same. Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Got it. So you went back in 66. Where were you stationed in 66?
We went north way up to Da Nang. That's way in the northern, they call it I Corps, First Corps, whatever you want to say it there. Starting operating there where action was a lot heavier. All the divisions from the enemy side were coming across that border, bypassing it, going down through Laos and Cambodia, coming into that area. They had objectives to take over that part of the country first, or go down to the middle and sneak across towards Saigon. But a whole bunch of divisions were coming across there, or waiting to come across, and we were having to fight them. It got heavy at times because Marine companies fight real good, but they can only fight for a certain length of time before their ammo and all their supplies run out. And a company is maybe about 250 men. There are meeting regiments, the NVA regiments that are 1,500 men. If they're reinforced, about 2,500 men they're fighting against. And weighing back of them would be a lot more waiting to come across. They would feed themselves down like that. The first ones, they get shot up, here comes the second wave. They get shot up, here comes the third wave. So it's a lot of battle going on there. We have to haul everybody in we could to help that one company or battalion down. And they had to learn how to fight as a battalion, not as a small unit. And they got real bad at times there. When we engage probably a division, a battalion against a division, that's a lot of people, a lot of Marines were getting killed. Had to seek help from the Army. And lots of times, the one big battle I remember is they had to take the wounded off volunteer wounded off the helicopter carriers out there under medical care. Asked for a lot of them to come back and help in the battle. And a lot of sailors joined the battle too. They jumped aboard the aircraft. They might not know how to shoot, but they know how to carry ammo and supplies and carry bodies.
Yeah. What battle was that?
I don't think it's a specific battle. Probably April battle. They say the Dong Ha battle. They would call it. They didn't have no particular name to give it. Just by a date and location.
So it was in 66.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Marine units would walk into the trap and get shot up, and we'd have to go in and haul a lot of people in, a battalion in to help them out. But it's big battles of invasion coming across there, and they knew how to set traps for us. nearly wipe out a lot of people there, but we still had to go back and send other people in there to fight them.
Yeah.
I think one company, they call them Walking Dead, because they only had about 23 people left out of the whole unit.
Out of a unit of?
Yeah, a company.
Out of an entire company?
Yeah, about 250 men or less. It's kind of bad because you might say it's a 250 man company, but during that time of the war, warm bodies were hard to obtain. So company might be about 2/3 of what it's supposed to be. And another third will be taken to guard different places. So when talking about a company, it's just not, it boiled down to about 100 men out there trying to fight a large unit.
I guess help me understand what your role in some of those were. Did you spend a lot of time on the ground, or were you really more focused on staying with the? Will you understand what I'm asking?
We basically our whole training was we would gather them up at their pickup point, load them all aboard aircraft, all launched out together at the same time to enter the battle. And then that's when the action started there. Things would get hot, aircraft would get shot down. But mainly on the ground when they got into the hot battle there, all the casualties. Our next step was to start hauling out all the dead bodies or the wounded. Wounded first. Might save them, the dead would go second. And then next part is to haul in ammunition, because by that time they're running out of ammunition and water. Next step is haul in food for who's ever survived there. The whole process was one right after another, doing the same thing all the time. Always launching out to help our grunts. It gets hard. It got hard at times there, because when we extracted the KIAs, they would practically fill up a helicopter with dead bodies. That made it hard to see. Especially with all the anti-war activity going on back that time too, 66, 67, 68.
Were you, well, I guess you had been in the States before you went back in 66, but while you were in Vietnam, were you fairly aware of what was going on in the States?
We had radio, that's about it. If you're in aviation, you don't have much luxury to watch television or all that stuff. I think you're good at 12, 16, 18-hour days out there trying to help our grunts. So once in a while, we'd have a day off, take a break, we would hear the television station or radio stations telling what's happening. The Army, I think, published a newspaper. They would send it out to everybody and let us know what's going on around the country there.
So you knew, you had a decent awareness as there was a lot of protesting going on?
Yeah.
Did you all talk much about it within your unit?
Not really. The only thing they would talk about is what they do with some of those characters. I can't tell you that.
Well, I think you're being too polite to tell me that. You can tell me whatever you want. Yeah, I'm sure that was disheartening, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
So how long were you there that second time? In 66?
1 year, 13 months.
Okay, you were there 13 months, so.
I think during that time, we going in on a large assault, Operation Hastings, which is another battalion against the whole division. They didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But they ambushed us in the landing zone, there's an operational mistake too. When the helicopter lands, it's supposed to fly into the wind, so it got more lift on the aircraft and sit down up there. The weather reporters gave the wrong information because the wind was coming from the rear end of the aircraft. Now you don't have no lift. So when we got to the zone, we were overloaded, too heavy, going too slow, and they started crashing. I think 4 of them crashed in the zone. Marines running out of aircraft would get chopped up because the crash of rotor blades are chewing up the ground now. Right in the middle of the battle there, and everybody's having to move off to the side one way or other because they're overloaded too.
Yeah.
And then they're starting to fight the battle already that close. We have to go extract all of them if we can. That's part of the, let's call it excitement or what. It kept your blood churning. Yeah.
I'm sure there was lots of adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then others died by just regular aircraft disappearing off the radar screen, you would say. They're flying over the ocean or the waters. Or they come back at night and they forget to read the charts right and know that there's a high mountain ahead of them. They'd fly right into it. I think we lost 4 like that. They didn't find them until about 2 years later. Our grunts were out there patrolling, and they come across the aircraft, and 4 bodies still in the aircraft. But a lot of older helicopters still operating, but they'd malfunction too. I guess they'd disappear into the ocean.
Was it with you being the mechanic for that? Did you just basically know the machine that you were working on, or did you have to know a bunch of different machines to be able to work on them?
Just your own machine there. You listen to it. Good mechanic would listen to what noises it's making, or it's grinding or not grinding, or it ain't supposed to be grinding, or the vibrations are. Pilots could tell there's something wrong with the aircraft because they start feeling something in the controls. And tell you it's got some excessive vibration coming out of pedals or cyclic stick, and they would tell you something needs checked out.
Were you pretty much assigned to one type of helicopter then?
All right.
Yeah.
You one helicopter, you stuck with it your whole tour. You had to know that aircraft.
Got it.
What kind of problems it gives. It would help you out. Yeah. I had a listening stick where I stick it to my ear and stick it on aircraft there, and I could hear the different sounds the engine aircraft is making.
Oh, really? While you were flying?
Oh, on the ground.
Or on the ground?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can do it in air too there.
If you could
but
hear.
you have to be inside the aircraft.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So it's something that while it was on the ground, you could do some diagnostics just by being able to listen to it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So how long, you were 13 months, when did you come back then to, I guess, when did you leave Vietnam and where did you go?
I left Vietnam and come back to Yuma, Arizona for about 2 years, just to get away from normal Fleet and Marine Force operations there. I was stationed at Yuma, Arizona with a search and rescue unit. And stayed a good tour there, out in the desert, learning how desert operations. And then had to go back to Vietnam again. In the meantime, my son was born in 1978. About that time, about 78, 77. Only son I had. They'd send me more to schools at Memphis, Tennessee. Learned to do different jobs, data analysis then. About all the problems that the Marine Corps has with their aircraft and what's causing the main problems or what parts are defective and all that stuff there. By just reading all the reports of what has to be repaired. So we could tell the commanding officers what they need to be looking at.
Yeah. So did you, I guess that would have been 10 or 12 years after you had been in Vietnam.
Yeah, about 78, yeah.
Yeah. So how did, what was that shift between being in sort of a combat zone to coming back, were you just doing regular maintenance and training continued
Just
or
about
exercises?
not as much as we did aboard regular operating units, because we did search and rescue for fixed wing base there.
Okay.
Fixed wing jet aircraft out there. Well, there's a bombing range around there where they come to practice all their bombing and shooting, whatever they had to do there.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go pick them up if they crashed or anything like that.
Yeah. Which it sounds like you did a little of anyway before whenever you all were just regularly. So I keep thinking about this. I don't know if you're going to remember anything about it, but when you were interviewed before 20 or 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember some of the things that you talked about or some of the things that you were asked to talk about?
It's about the same thing, but I was fresh out of Vietnam, and sometimes I thought, just like you were, kind of like anti-war questions.
Yeah.
It looked like he's trying to give me, say, some anti-war things in my answers.
Oh, that you felt like that was something that was being targeted.
Yeah.
Well, so I wonder has your viewpoint changed much since you were fresh out of Vietnam compared to now?
Not really. The politicians got us into war, and the politicians helped us lose the war. Not the military. The politicians gave away our victory.
Yeah, Vietnam was, well, I won't presume to tell you what I think Vietnam was, but political. I guess that's what that is the word I'm thinking, political. And that made me think of something too, when you talked about the combat photographer that was stationed with your squadron really, as the first ones in. One of the things that is sort of well known about Vietnam is it was the first war that was really strongly covered by the media. Do you have any thoughts about that aspect of it?
No, not really there. There've been combat photographers all the time in all wars. Just they weren't allowed to show their pictures in the large publications, I would think. They were confined to being published in books or magazines or something like that, but really not in a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
They told good stories and gave their own ideas of it, of what happened in there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Marine units would read those things there, and they'd learn from it because they'd give good information about what was happening and what to expect when they go over there.
Was that a more popular cultural audience, or was that specifically targeted writing for other military groups?
Probably for other military, because they were involved and they were given a lot of help to go in there. They'd carry them into battle and let them take their pictures and carry them out of battle when their picture taking when the time was up. A lot of them would stay a while, but not that many.
Mm-hmm. Well, so did you have one way or the other? Like when you came back in '67, I mean, there were still things happening in Vietnam.
Yeah. Well, after Yuma, I went back to Vietnam again in '69.
Okay. Oh gosh, you had 3. Oh.
Yeah. This time I'd received some promotions and E-2nd Gunnery Sergeant, I guess, there. And sending me back out to Vietnam, but this time I went to a border aircraft carrier for a 6-month trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I operated all the aircraft carriers. They would send us this aircraft carrier for 6 months and then aboard land for 6 months.
Mm-hmm. What was the difference for you of being on board an aircraft carrier versus where you had been your other 2 tours?
Yeah. My job was different this time. I was in control of officers or doing certain things that not involved with actual combat flying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So more administrative, maybe?
In a way, I helping to train crews, but not doing the flying. I think after it makes staff sergeant, you had to start training, be a training person.
So how did you feel about that?
It was okay there. I kind of hated to not fly because it really didn't scare me that much.
Flying?
But that's part of the job, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you mean dealing with the promotional aspect of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you could have had a choice, would you have gone back to flying then?
Yeah. Kind of disappointed that I didn't get back to flying, but they wouldn't let me do it with my title position. So it had to be a trainer.
So how long did you do that then?
We did another, well, I did about 6 months aboard ship, then 6 months on land, and then returned back to the States after 13 months.
And both on the land and on the aircraft carrier was both training?
Yeah. And we do, I think one time we were aboard aircraft carriers and big storm, and I believe it's Japanese ships were getting in trouble by the hurricanes, and they got stranded on a small island and we had to go rescue them at night in a hurricane. High wind, dark. We did it.
You made it back? I mean,
all our aircraft did. Yeah. They had to learn how to fly two at a time, I guess. No aircraft would fly by itself.
Yeah. Now, what was the rationale for that?
In case one goes down, we know somebody else knows where they're at.
Is that still the policy, do you know?
Pardon?
Is that still the policy?
It's still a policy. Yeah.
When did that start? Or maybe it was...
It might have been the Vietnam War. It might have been part of the policy before that there, but it got real serious back then because aircraft would disappear at sea and nobody knew where they were at, where they went down. You had to keep an eye on each other.
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So do you have any idea about, from your perspective, because you were from the time that the first time you went to Vietnam to the last time you were deployed to Vietnam,
Right.
Do you have a perspective in any changes with either our military presence there or the roles or the job in general?
Not really. It all remained the same, but they developed new techniques now for different type of weapons, aircraft being used. They've improved a lot in their techniques. They learn how to work together a lot better than what they used to. We used to have a problem with radios. Everybody had a different radio channel. Not no more. They're trying to consolidate them so everybody can be on the same channel, monitoring what's happening.
You mean everybody in the military in general, or everybody in the Marine Corps, or everybody?
It's same way with the Marine Corps unit or aircraft unit, or they had their different radio channels to operate on. Understandably, all of them couldn't be on the same channel.
Yeah. Right.
We'll get in the heat of battle though. Everybody getting excited, everybody be on the radio. You couldn't make out what was going on. Too many people talking.
Yeah. But it's still important, it sounds like, to have that one consolidated space when you need it. Yeah. So when Vietnam ended officially then, you were back in the States, is that correct? Or were you somewhere else?
I was back in the States. I think I was on recruiting duty then.
Okay.
But the only other exciting thing in Vietnam was we'd stationed up north near DMZ there. All the Marine squadrons had to send a helicopter or two up to close to there, be close to the DMZ in case fixed wing aircraft get shot down and coming back and have to go into the water or crash on land. Then we had to go in there and pick them up. That's kind of hazardous because they had big missiles up there then. They could shoot you down fast. So we had to fly low and fast as we could to get at them.
For search and rescue?
Right.
Yeah.
We'd have to pick them out of the water or wherever they landed at in enemy territory. So a lot of people working on that, Air Force and Navy. The Air Force mainly had their own large aircraft, rescue aircraft. They're Jolly Green Giants. They were a lot faster than us. They probably had better equipment than we had. Against them, all we had was about that time, just the M60 machine gun. That is not very heavy.
Yeah. So, in one circumstances, would your aircraft be deployed to do that search and rescue versus?
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody had to take their chance up there. No favorites.
Yeah. So if you were the closer one,
Yeah. Yeah. If nobody close to the aircraft would have to do it. They put out a mayday call and you'd know where you were at. So you go out and help that fella.
Was that something that you had to take part in a lot?
I didn't.
No.
Yeah. A lot of other aircraft crews did. A lot of them would crash or get shot down, send more aircraft in, bigger units, until they finally collect them. That policy was developing pretty well then, but leave no one behind.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious what your perspective was whenever they made the announcement that the U.S. was going to pull out of Vietnam.
Yeah. I think I was kind of disappointed that things hadn't turned out like we had hoped. I think among the Marine Corps is very disappointed that we didn't get to invade North Vietnam, their hometown way up north there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It could have changed things quite a bit there. They allowed us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't bomb their airfield. We couldn't bomb their ports where all the ammunition was coming in. We couldn't bomb their railroad tracks, bringing all the ammunition down.
Do you know where that decision was coming down, or how it was communicated with you?
It's coming out of the White House. That's about all I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I won't mention the politician's name, but he's the one big hand in it there that gave the country away.
Well, you can if you want to.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be a secret to everybody, but
Yeah. They already know it anyway.
yeah. Well, I wonder too, was that a sentiment that was shared within your colleagues? Was that something you all talked about?
It's probably throughout the whole Marine Corps that they didn't let us go up there and do a job on them.
Mm-hmm. Did you all ever talk about why you thought that was? I mean, I understand politics. I get that, but
Politics, that's about it. Because we had some Marine general fighters back then, not politicians, like probably nowadays they're more politically orientated, not combat.
mm-hmm.
We had Marine fighters that come out of the old Corps, World War II, weren't afraid to fight.
Mm-hmm. That was your
leaders, yeah.
your commanders at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so how long was your military career overall?
22 years.
22 years.
Yeah.
So you retired, I guess, after 22 years?
Yeah. Gun or master sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
I think during that time though, it probably was hard on the families because out of 22 years, I probably spent at least 10 years away from my family.
Yeah. At what point in there did you get married then?
1965.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in between
Yeah.
two of your different trips.
And the first 8 years of my marriage, I was gone 4 years. So that kind of had an effect on when I was about to retire there. I come back from one side of the world and got to North Carolina there, and they was ready to send me to the other side of the world. Not much time with the family, so I said it's time to leave.
Yeah. So when you landed in, wait, I have it somewhere. So you were back in Vietnam, and then you left Vietnam again for the
Right.
third time in 70 or 71, 70.
Yeah. I went to recruiting school then
Then you went to
for
recruiting.
several while until about 76, I think.
Okay, so the rest of your career was more like
Yeah.
recruiting.
Yeah. Then after that, just normal training again because we weren't going back to Vietnam.
Yeah. Right.
Although they had a few units there, but not that many anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, in 76, when you decided to retire, and then you had your child in 77 or 78, so after you retired, you weren't that old when you retired, right?
All right. I think it must have been 40, ain't it?
40, I think that's probably.
38, 78.
Depends on when you graduated. Yeah. What'd you do?
Went down, got a job, and went to work. Had a family to support.
You did have a family support. What
Yeah.
did you work in? What did you?
Well, I went to mechanics again. Went to work in a water heater manufacturing company, and the union closed it down. Went to work in a paper cup making company, and the union closed it down. So I went to work with the Georgia State prison system for 5 years. Learned how to be a babysitter for criminals. Then my knees were wearing out at that time, so I decided to retire. Because a lot of my friends, when they got 65, they were all dying. So I said, I ain't gonna wait that long, so I retired.
Yeah. All your friends were dying at 65. That's pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so this leaps back to where we started, which was your time at Chilocco, and I'm curious if you had, in your time in the military, did you have other people that were Native American that served with you? Was that ever sort of part of your identity?
There were several that come through, but not that many in the aviation. I'm pretty sure a lot of them could have passed the test to have that GCT score, but they didn't necessarily go to aviation there. Come across a few, but they had their problems, like they do here in Oklahoma.
You mean a lot of alcoholics
Yeah.
and substance abuse?
Yeah. I guess it's probably that PTSD coming out of Vietnam there that was affecting them. I admit I have it, but it's not as large as the regular. I probably would have had it greater if I had personally went out there and killed people. But I wasn't directly involved. But yeah, I was indirectly involved in helping get them killed. But I had a lot of problems with that. All my dreams were always carrying Marines into battle or flying with the Marines somewhere. For a long time, my dreams were like that.
When you came back?
Yeah. I could hear a loud noise. I'd be ready to hit the ground. It usually got me pretty hard when I heard a helicopter flying. There used to be a helicopter base, or regular cities now have helicopters flying around. I get a little bit anxious there when I hear helicopters flying. I was used to those helicopters, you knew by the sounds of what type of helicopter it was. They'd make a certain sound and you knew what was coming. So it'd make your heart pump fast. You know what's going to be happening, like it was in Vietnam, or getting ready for battle or something.
Did you have any kind of support to deal with that?
Not really. They tried, but I wasn't that bad off, I guess. Or what they did, their diagnosis was give them some tranquilizers.
This is the VA.
So they give me a little pill to take, and it made me go to sleep too much, so I quit taking them. Never went back.
Yeah. Do you identify pretty, well, how do you identify with your Native American heritage?
I read quite a bit. I got whole books about my native heritage, about Indians and different tribes and what they did, why they did it. I have to take it with a grain of salt because historians are mostly palefaces.
Yes, they are.
That's paleface concept of it. If the Indians wrote the books, it'd be a lot different.
Not arguing with you there
Yeah,
by any means.
Okay. But I dealt with it okay there. Of course, I was away from 1956 to 2014.
You were away from
My native people.
anyone, yeah.
Yeah. So my wife's family died out, and then she finally died out after a while. So I decided to come back and be with my brothers and sisters.
Hadn't you kept in touch with them much while you were gone?
I'm trying to. There was 13 of us in the family. One died in Vietnam at Quezon, and the others, he let drugs get a hold of him. He died. So there's, what's that make? 11 still alive, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Are they
I'm trying to
mostly
deal
in
with-
Oklahoma?
Yeah. 2 of them are out in California. Overdosing on that bad air out in California, L.A.
So, well, good weather, bad air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I wonder about too. Did you join any veterans groups or anything like that whenever you left the military?
Not really. I'm not a joiner. I consider myself a loner. I take care of myself. You take care of yourself. I've got to where I don't depend on other people for assistance, unless it's emergency or something. But I depend on myself.
Which is interesting because it sounds like while you were in the military that and part of that group that you couldn't really have that mentality, it seems like.
Yeah. We had to basically start how to survive yourself, but then it's also helping the other Marine in the next foxhole next to you survive, and that's your brother, all of them.
Do you keep in touch with anybody that you were?
I
in the
tried,
military
but
with?
those scammers, or what we call them, hackers, messed up the email system quite a bit, so I fell out of it. They're doing a lot of damage to my emails and website.
That's frustrating. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I know that there's now that you're sort of getting trying to reconnect with your native roots.
Yeah.
Are you involved or interested in getting involved with any of the Native American veteran groups?
We tried down there, but we're all getting old. It's hard to get them to all meet together at one time.
Yeah. Where physically is that?
Muscogee.
In Oklahoma.
But they give a lot of language classes down there. We try to learn that. Trying to learn to speak. Trying to learn to sing native language. Of course, they can't leave out the Native American food too. We try and do all that, and we're trying to help the younger generation, those that are willing to relearn their history.
Yeah. Did you grow up in a home that spoke a native language?
Right. They all spoke the Creek language, but they could speak. They went to Chilocco here and they do English. But most of the language I heard back then was Creek language. I could understand it, but I couldn't speak it.
I see.
When I went to college, got my degree there, they wanted me to take a foreign language class. I said no. I've already learned a foreign language, English. That shook them up a little bit. They had to have a big discussion about it. Then finally agreed that English was my foreign language.
Good for you. No, I'm serious. Where did you go to college?
University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. I learned to be I've always liked art, so I went for my own edification, not to make money at it, but to see what I could do in art. And I still do that.
When did you do that?
Pardon?
When?
Well, 1978 to 1986, 8 years, work going half-time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I do artwork, but I don't do it for pay.
Uh-huh.
I do it, and after I get started looking at it, I give it away to my sisters or relatives. Some I've sold, because I was living in a small town back then, but them big rich people up from Atlanta would come up and they'd buy pictures.
So
The
do
rich
you,
cats.
those rich cats. Did you show?
They're going to close the building at 3.
Oh, what time is it?
It's about 10 minutes to 3.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make something real quick.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
We'll figure it out because we have another interview scheduled from 3 to 5, so
Okay.
we'll have to get that worked out. Well, just I will have other questions about that, but I don't have to do it right now. Well, so you're back in. Just one more question, and this revolves around why you're here today. Like, what brings you to the Chilocco reunion? Like, what's the draw?
Yeah, I've never been to a reunion.
Really?
Right, this is my first time back. I've come by, passed to see one special friend here, was in my class there. He was a baker. And I come by, stop by and see him while the school was still operating, but that was about it.
Before 80, then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what do you think?
Pardon?
What do you think? Now that you're back on campus after all this
Very
time.
disappointed at what they let happen to it. A lot of beautiful buildings went to heck. It shouldn't have happened.
Okay, they're just closing up all their stuff that they're doing here. He said you can, because somebody will be here to watch or something.
Okay.
I thought everybody was leaving at 3, but it's just us.
It's cool. Thank you.
Is he the director?
Yeah. Can't you tell? Well, so you're back here. Yeah, you're right. A lot's happened with the buildings, I'm sure. You
I thought it was a real good school, helpful to the American Indian, but I can see the other side where Native Americans need to learn more how to operate with white people, pale faces, whatever you want to call it, white eyes, whatever.
You can call me whatever you want.
No, you don't hear that.
I won't take it personally. Maybe I should, but I won't.
Yeah. But they need to learn how to operate and how they do it and how the procedures are, because I see a great failure in their education about learning how to deal with other peoples. Even within their own families, they've lost it. I see them all result out there on the streets. I come back and be a deacon to help the widow, the orphan, the poor, the hungry, the children. And I found it here. It's very difficult to deal with that because of the parents and grandparents' failures to teach them the way they should go.
Do you think that's a loss of who you are as a people? Is it like from the native perspective?
It's a great loss because they don't know their own history now. They don't know who their ancestors are. They don't know, in most cases, a lot of them cases, they don't know who their relatives are. A few cases, or it might be because the joke is you can't marry into the Creek Nation now because you might be marrying your relative. So that's why they're getting other nationalities into the nation now.
Small.
Yeah. Just for your own edification, I married a pale faces.
I don't know why I made that assumption, but I did. I shouldn't have. Yeah. Well, so your plan to come back is to reconnect with your family and to help. It sounds like help your tribe.
Right. I'm a religious man now. After my wife's family died, she died. I talked to God and asked for directions where to go. He sent me here. He sent me to one special place. He sent me to one special person who taught me to be a deacon before he passed on. I think he knew he was going to pass on, and he prayed a lot for someone to come along.
What church?
And here I come.
Here you are. What church are you affiliated
Building
with?
Baptist Church in Muscogee,
Okay.
right close to the university down here. Yeah. So I'm dealing with them, learning how to deal with children, how to deal with women, learning how to deal with other churches.
Yeah.
Everything is not in a set pattern with everybody. They all have their different techniques. And you have to learn all those different techniques, rules and regulations about ceremony and ritual.
Mm-hmm. So you learned anything interesting?
Most of it's interesting because I've never known how they operate here in the Creek Nation, Muscogee Nation.
Well, so when you grew up, was that not something that you grew up in? Like that wasn't part
Yeah.
of what you all?
But when they're too young to realize that there's a difference there.
Right.
We was poor, but we didn't consider ourselves poor. We were used to it. People would help us, but that's part of growing up, I guess. There, everybody else was poor too, just not us.
Yeah. Yeah, I
We
understand.
deal a little bit with racial relationships because my grandmother, she was dark. We traveled with her and get on a bus to go to town. They say, go to the back of the bus. I said, okay, there's good seats back there. Didn't bother me.
Yeah. Well, I don't consider you to be a dark-skinned
Yeah.
person. Was that something when you started going to Indian boarding school, was there a division there between?
No, not really. Only time I come across that was I was based in the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, traveling through there. Then that's when I started seeing those signs about white people lonely, colored people lonely.
Where did you feel like you fell in that line?
I thought I fell within the white people's line. I didn't consider myself black. Of course, this is my summertime tan. In the wintertime, I turn white like a pale face.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because North Carolina still has a fair amount of Cherokee, and at least a portion of it.
And they were real discriminated against back then. Probably still are.
Well, I think it's good that I'm happy to hear that you come back. I'm happy to
Okay,
hear it
yeah.
was a good thing.
I'll probably try to come back again, but I need to change things about the way they do things here.
Well, you got plenty of people you can talk
They
to.
need name tags and the years they attended. They don't know by just looking at it. You have to go up and ask a stranger what their name is, what year you were here. Maybe it starts you to talking, but it would be helpful if you had a name tag and the year you were here.
Well, you're the second person I've heard that from today, so
Yeah.
you've got momentum behind you
Yeah,
on that. They
Yeah.
may just put you on a committee to do it, but
yeah,
that's okay too.
yeah.
Well, unless there's anything else you want to add, I think we're getting towards the end of our time.
That should be about it. I'm not a man of few words, like I said.
Well, it's interesting, though. You had such a specific role, but you played such a broad. You had such a broad impact. It seems like during your time, so it is very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's unusual because when I was in the military, white folks didn't realize that there were a lot of Indians in this country. So I always ended up being a Spanish. They see my last name, they say, "Are you from Scotland?" I said, "No." So do you tell them you're Indian? They act like they knew all the Indian tribes, about 700 different tribes, and they say, "What tribe are you then?" After about 500 times of that question, I'd have to develop a joke. You don't hear it.
I don't. I might. If you don't want it on the recording, that's fine.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, I tried to take it out of Marine Corps terms. They would ask you, "What tribe are you?" And I say, "Well, I was a little band of short people, real short people. When they get in the swamp, they would travel through the tall weeds. They would have to go to the highest mountain around, stick their hands up, say, 'Where the heck are we?' So I say, 'That's a heck are we tribe.'" I've reduced the language down now.
I think I can get it. Yeah.
that pale-faced officer one time there. He remembered that story the rest of his life because my son got involved through the Peace Corps with his wife, and they went to a Peace Corps meeting, and there was this Marine officer there, and he saw that name there, and he told my son that story I told him. That's about 30 years later. So my son called me at home and said, I know what tribe you are. He started telling me that story there. So he remembered that.
Oh, that. There's actually something really special about that. I think
Yeah.
that's neat. All right. Well, I'm gonna set you free.
Okay.